I'm Katie from Gabe and Zach. I'm here today as a Love Notions ambassador, taking the new Breckenridge Henley and adding a bishop sleeve to it. It's pretty simple to do. Let's get started. Let's start on actually modifying the long sleeve cuff sleeve. The first thing you want to do is add your 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around the pattern piece. So I've gone ahead and used my straight edge ruler and then also my hem gauge to just mark the 3/8 inch all the way around. When we're doing cuts and things, we're not going to go past cutting the 3/8 inch so that the sleeve piece stays intact. The next piece you want to do is take your ruler and measure from seam allowance to seam allowance across right at the arm side and find that amount. For my sleeve piece, that is 13.5 inches. We are going to divide the sleeve in 4 pieces right here. So I'm going to mark at the halfway point, which is 6 3/4, and then 3 3/8. Next, what we'll do is we will take the straight edge ruler, we will line it up across the line that we drew, and then make our mark. So draw a straight line all the way up your pattern piece. Do the same thing for the other marks. That's what your pattern piece should look like. The next step, you'll need your scissors. Now we will take our scissors and cut from the bottom of the sleeve up to the seam allowance. The reason that you don't want to cut any further than your seam allowance at the top is that we are going to now spread apart these cut pieces. And if we were to cut further up, we would change the shape of the arm side. We want this to still fit our sleeve without that happening, so we will leave it the same. Now we need our tracing paper. This is really just to hold down your new sleeve piece, so you can really tape it to anything. All right, this is where I take my tape and I'm gonna tape down the top of the sleeve to my tracing paper. You can choose to make your sleeve as wide as you would like or as narrow as you like. I find that about a 2-inch difference between the sleeve pieces is enough for me, but you can make it wider if you'd like. So starting with the center piece, I am going to spread 2 inches. And then tape these down. And do another 2 inches. I'm doing this at the hem. This is how wide you want it. If you're going to want a more gathered bishop sleeve, then definitely increase your distance that you're putting these pieces apart. Alrighty, now let's repeat the process on the other side. Now what we'll do is we will go ahead and connect this bottom piece of the part of the sleeve should be at a slight curve. It is not going to be straight any longer because it needs to curve around. If you like your sleeve to billow a tiny bit, I would definitely recommend adding in some extra length. Otherwise, your bishop sleeve is going to be pretty tight against your cuff. So I'm going to add about 3/4 of an inch here. Okay, now go ahead and cut out your sleeve. Now you have your new sleeve piece. Remember, this is a sleeve that is cut mirrored, so you will cut one face up and one face down with the pattern pieces. You're welcome to add additional tape if you want to keep this flat, but your shape should be the same. You will also need to cut the cuff pieces for the long sleeve cuff. but those won't be modified in any way. So you can take this now to your fabric, cut your mirrored pieces, and get going. I now have all my pieces cut. I have the 2 cuffs as according to the pattern. The neckband, both of these are cut in double brush poly. Then for my sleeve, I have 2 mirrored sleeves from the new piece that we just made. The main print of my Breckenridge is going to be a pointelle that is in a fun animal print. And then in addition to that, I also have both the front and back bodice pieces cut on the fold with the markings so that I can start with the placket. I've decided on this one I'm going to make it tunic length, so my pieces are quite long. You can also do the same modification for the shirt or the dress length. All of those work the same. It doesn't impact that at all. So now I'm going to get going according to the tutorial. I will follow the steps all the way until I'm about to attach the cuff. Then I will pause and I'll show you how to add the gathers for the bishop sleeve. I now have my completed bodice all finished. I even have the hem done. The side seams sewn up with my serger. The placket is finished. I just haven't put on my buttons yet. And then I also have my cuffs sewn together. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my cuff and put a clipper pin at the half point. This makes it a little bit easier when making sure the gathers are even with the cuff. Do that on both of those. Set those aside. Now we're going to do the same thing with your sleeve piece. On both sides. The next step is going to be at the sewing machine. You will take over your bodice and you will be doing 2 lines of basting stitches, one at 1/4 inch and one at 5/8 inch seam allowance. A basting stitch is a lengthened straight stitch, usually the longest your sewing machine will allow. In my case, it's a length 5. It's time to finish up the sleeve. So we have our 2 lines of gathering stitches on the sleeve. I'm going to go ahead and trim off my serger tail if you haven't done that already. Then I prefer to actually pull my gathers first before inserting the cuff. I find it easier to loosen gathers than it is to make them tighter again. So find the 2 threads that are on the right side. This is the bobbin that we'll be pulling. And I've put between my 2 fingers the fabric holding the threads. And then I'm going to pull these evenly. See how it's kind of scrunching up in my hand? Then you can just take these and kind of evenly disperse them. Now let's find the other threads from the other side. Okay, now that your gathers are finished, go ahead and take a clip and put a clip where your marking was for the center of your sleeve. You will now take your completed cuff and slide your cuff inside, so right sides are together, the sleeve. You will be lining up your halfway point of your cuff against the where you just put that clip. It's okay if your gathers are tighter than your cuff at this point. Okay, then you will match up the seams of your cuff and your sleeve. Put a clip there. So as you can see, they're close, but they're not quite the same. So we're going to redistribute and add a clip to keep it in place. Do the same on the other side. Okay, I'm going to take this over to my serger and attach these with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, making sure that when I get to where the gathering stitches are, it's pulled a little bit so that it doesn't remove the gathers from attaching it. I'm back with my finished sleeve as well as my handy seam ripper. So usually when you're seam ripping, it's for something that's gone wrong, but in this case, we're just removing some gathering stitches. So all we need to do is take our seam ripper to the stitches that are on the main part of the sleeve and remove those. These are the stitches that you did at the 5/8 inch seam allowance. That was so that they would hold it all together when you were sewing. So here is the finished sleeve and the billow from the bishop. I will show you how the finished garment looks in just a minute.